Yo guys, welcome back to another video. Today, as you can see by the title, I'm going to be doing my top 10 comic reads of 2025. I know I'm a little bit late to the game on this one, but I just had uh, what do you call it, a wave of motivation to make this video. I was really thinking about it, and I remembered that this is a really cool video that I wanted to do that I just haven't done yet. I just didn't get the chance to do it yet. So that being said, I picked 10 books here. This is all stuff not necessarily that came out this year, but stuff that, I read this year. I just started reading comics back in 2024, so the vast majority of comics I've ever read are going to be here in this list, just because, 2025 was the first full year that I read. In 2024, I read comics. I'd only read comics for like 6 months by the end of 2024, but I have a full year of comics that I read in 2025. I condensed the list. This isn't in any particular order, um, and there are some things on here that I would probably rank higher than others. Some things that I really like that aren't on this list. So I'll be doing a couple honorable mentions. I just wanted to make sure that I had a good amount of variety in here. Um, so yeah, I'm not going to drag this on for too long. Let's get started. Now, as far as honorable mentions go, there are quite a few. One of the first ones that I did want to shout out is Wolverine. I started reading a lot of Wolverine this year. And one of the things that I did read was not only Weapon X by Barry Windsor Smith, but one thing that surprised me a ton and I absolutely loved was the first 10 issues of Marvel Comics Presents into um, the first 10 issues of the 1988 Wolverine run. Those two combined make just a really awesome story. It's written by Chris Claremont, who I haven't had the greatest experiences with in the past, and now that I have been reading a lot more, I do want to go back and maybe read some of those Claremont books that I didn't originally enjoy and see how I feel about them. But uh, regardless, I really enjoyed, especially those first 10 issues of Wolverine. I absolutely love the story, and especially with the Wolverine video game coming out later this year, I'm very excited, and I'm glad that I did go ahead and read those. In when was that? Sometime during the summer, probably in 2025. Um, so yeah, that's an honorable mention. There are several Daniel Warren Johnson books that I read this year. In fact, originally I was going to do a video where I was going to read and review all of the Daniel Warren Johnson books, but that video kind of fell apart and it never came out. But I still did hold true to that, and I did read just about everything that he's ever written or at least published. Uh, so there are several titles on that are not on this list that I absolutely loved. Stuff like Space Mullet, um, Do a Powerbomb did not make the cut. Uh, I'm not gonna, because if I tell the whole list, then you guys are gonna be able to narrow down which ones are on the list. But there are several Daniel Warren Johnson books that didn't make the cut, just for the sake of variety, or else this whole list would just be Daniel Warren Johnson because I absolutely love his work. Um, so there's some of that stuff. I mean, Jason Aaron's God Butcher Saga for Thor didn't make the cut. Junkyard Joe didn't make the cut. Slash, Rook Exodus. Some of the Ghost Machine stuff. I'm trying to think what else. Um, some of the early Daredevil stuff, like Man Without Fear, that I read this year, didn't make the cut. But anyway, I read a shit ton of great books. Oh yeah, and one of the big ones is the Jeff Loeb Tim Sale Batman. Honestly, looking back, I probably should have put that up here. So That's probably like the biggest glaring one that didn't make the cut, where when it probably absolutely should have, because I loved that book. But anyway, I just wanted to make sure we got a good amount of variety. So, honorable mentions aside, let's get into it. Again, this is in no particular order except the order that I randomly put these books in. So, here we go. First book I actually have the trade of, and that is going to be Jason Aaron's Bug Wars. I absolutely love Bug Wars. It's one of my favorite indie comics that I've ever read. I was there when it first came out. I was picking it up, and I loved being. One of my favorite experiences with this book is not only speaking on the quality of the book itself, but just the community aspect of me reading it. Every month, every new issue that came out, me and a bunch of buddies on Discord would just theory craft, and I'd just be so excited in the conversation around every next issue of Bug Wars, wondering what could happen next, in just this world that Jason Aaron and Mahmoud Asrar have crafted, just ever expanding with every issue. Um, it's just fucking amazing, and yeah. And then talking about the comic itself, it's full of action. The art is amazing. I'm a big fan of Mahmoud Asrar's art. I think he's spectacular. All of the factions and I really loved Wista, the Spider Witch. She is fucking awesome too. Um, yeah, no, I was blown away by this book. It definitely caught me by surprise. I loved Bug Wars. Um, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, as I'm recording this, in a couple of weeks we are getting the Spider Witch special. So we're getting more Bug Wars finally, which I'm very excited for. I'm going to be picking up a few variants for that. Um, those are going to be in my pull box, but yeah, Bug Wars. If you guys don't know what it is, it's essentially like Honey I Shrunk the Kids mixed with like, I don't know, Conan the Barbarian, or like it's like Honey I Shrunk the Kids if it was an epic fantasy or like power fantasy, pretty much. Like it's super sick. Um, but yeah, this is the first thing that's on the list. Bug Wars. If you're able to get the trade, I absolutely recommend it, because one of the things about the single issues as it was coming out is that they were thick issues. There was a ton of content every month, and there's like the letter pages. I don't know if the letter pages are included, but no, it's got a bunch of stuff, maps, concept art, stuff like that. But yeah, there were every one of the things I loved about it when it was coming out is the single issues just always had a bunch of content in them, so it was very much like a bang for your buck. So if you're able to pick up the trade, they're long issues. It's great. Definitely worth your money. All right, so the next book I'm going to be talking about is Absolute Batman. So this first book here, this first hardcover, has the first arc, which started back in 2024. But man, I've been picking this book up in singles since the day it came out. This is largely the book that got me into comics, because I had just started reading comics when this came out. I had read Old Man Logan, which was like my first like comic reading experience. But that was me going to the bookstore picking up a trade. I didn't really pick up single issues that much. Like I had a few that I picked up, at the comic store, the comic shop that I just went to, and I thought they were like cool covers, but I didn't really like get into reading it. But Absolute Batman, when it came out in October of 2024, that's what got me into being like, okay, comics are like my thing now. Like I'm going to go to the comic shop every Wednesday, pick up weekly books. Like this was the series that propelled me into that. Um, and then, anyways, I'm just glazing Absolute Batman right now. I read, so the first arc wrapped up at the beginning of the year, but really quickly, and I absolutely love the first arc, by the way, but really quickly, it was turned up a notch when the Bane arc started. And the Bane arc is what most of the year was. Like, there was a couple months where they were doing the little Mr. Freeze section, which I wasn't the biggest fan of. Like, it was okay, but wasn't my favorite. Um, but issue 9 blew my fucking mind. Okay. Um, Now I'm sad because obviously I have to show volume 1 here, but what I'm mainly talking about is the contents of volume 2, which comes out here in a few weeks. Anyway, the Bane arc has just been insane. I absolutely love Absolute Batman. I mean, I've loved it since the beginning, but bro, it's just been wild. And talking about stuff that's not collected and probably won't be for a little while, probably not until the summer or so, if I had to guess. Um, we just got Absolute Joker with issue 15, which that issue was insane. Arc M just came out like last week. Fucking insane. It was basically issue 15, part 2. Just everything going on with Absolute Batman has just been wild. I'm a big fan of Nick Dragotta. This year I also read East of West, which didn't make the cut, but is one of my favorite comics. Like, that just goes to show you how many bangers are on this list. But yeah, that's when I had read, like I said, the first arc by the time I got around to reading East of West. But East of West is where I really fell in love with Nick Dragotta's art, and then moving forward in Absolute Batman after East of West, I had gained like a new appreciation for it. Um, his artwork is fantastic. Scott Snyder just really knows how to write Batman, at least in this Absolute title, which makes me hopeful to read. Is my finger going the right way? His New 52 stuff. You know, I've heard mixed things about that, but uh, yeah, no, I'm still very hopeful for it because if this goes to show, you know, anything, it's that Scott Snyder knows how to write a damn good Batman story. Um, yeah, it's brutal, it's metal, it's just pure fucking testosterone. Every single issue, the mystery behind it, it just leaves you asking questions and just so excited for what's to come. And yeah, moving into this new year, I'm very, very excited. We've got, what is it, next? Or like, yeah, I think it's next week. We've got the Absolute Wonder Woman tie-in. So I'm very excited to see what's to come. But Absolute Batman continues to be one of my favorite comics of all time. Moving on, I'm going to be talking about Planet Hulk. This was basically, I'm pretty sure this was the first Hulk comic that I read. If not, it was the Donny Cates, Ryan Otley series, which is also fantastic.
Say that again?
But this was the first like big Hulk series that I read. It's not huge, but like, you know what I mean. Um, and I guess technically you can kind of tie in World War Hulk with this as well. I guess you could call this segment Planet Hulk / World War Hulk because I feel like they go hand in hand. But Planet Hulk is my favorite part, and you know, gives all the context to why World War Hulk happens in the first place. So essentially, Hulk, all of the Avengers and like the people of Earth get scared of Hulk because he's unpredictable, and they send him off to this desolate planet where they were just like, you know, just basically fuck off and die. Like, we don't want to have to deal with you anymore. So he gets stuck in space, but then his ship gets like damaged or something, and he ends up crash landing on this planet where he wasn't supposed to go to. He was originally supposed to go to a desolate planet where there wasn't any life and nobody who he could kill or hurt. But he ends up on this planet with like these weird, like almost alien or like bug-like alien people. And they've got this thing that like traps his powers. And they enslave him and turn him into essentially a gladiator. Like, if you've seen Thor Ragnarok, which is a great movie, but having read Planet Hulk, it was a complete bastardization of what this comic was. Like, it makes me it puts it leaves a bitter taste in my mouth. Pause of the movie, even though I enjoy it, but like having read the source material, I'm like, bro, y'all actually fumbled. Like, it could have been one of the coolest movies ever, probably, had they adapted correctly. Same could be said with Gore the God Butcher, right? Um, they just fumbled twice, like 2 times in a row with Thor movies, by the way, and it shouldn't have even been a Thor movie for like the Planet Hulk stuff. Anyway, what this ends up being is like a sprawling sci-fi epic fantasy story where you follow Hulk as a gladiator. He gathers this band of misfit aliens that are enslaved, and then they rebel against this empire, and like it's a story about revolution and love. It's violent, like you've got Hulk fucking people up, man. And then it's also a story of tragedy. It's just so epic in scale. If you're a fan of stuff like, again, Gladiator, duh. If you're a fan of Gladiator or like Dune, I highly recommend you check out Planet Hulk, or even books like Sun Eater or uh, Red Rising. Although it's like, it's a little bit more surface level than those books. It still has a lot of those same themes and vibes and um, what's the word I'm looking for? Motifs. Um, but yeah, no, Planet Hulk absolutely blew me away and was like my first real exposure to Hulk comics. Um, yeah, and it was fucking fantastic. Absolutely loved it. So yeah, Planet Hulk. Next up, we got one of the first comics that I reviewed in 2025, way back, I believe, in March. Um, and we've got Daredevil Yellow by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. This was the first Jeff Loeb Tim Sale combo book that I read because this past year rather, they were reprinting the Colors series, which is fantastic. But anyway, this is the first one that they did, which was like honestly just in time because I was just getting into Daredevil. Born Again had just come out, the TV show, so I was watching Daredevil, like the original, for the first time, and I was super into Daredevil. And I was like, I want to read some comics. Um, and then this happened to just get printed, like literally that week when I was like wrapping up the first like season or couple of seasons of the original show. And yeah, I picked it up and read it almost immediately, and I was blown away. I would say this is a great entry point for people who want to read Daredevil. Um, it especially for modern readers, because a lot of that Silver Age stuff is kind of shitty. So in a lot of ways, it like covers the same ground that the Silver Age stuff did, but like makes it like really I don't know, clean and like pretty, I guess. Like you don't have to worry about the wordiness of the Silver Age stuff. It just kind of goes over it and gives you the context that you need. It's not campy. It's just like a modernization and retelling of a lot of those early Daredevil stories. Yeah, no, it was a really good place to start with Daredevil, I think. And this is, like I said, my first introduction to Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale's work, which I went on to read the other books in the Color series. I haven't read Captain America White yet, but Spider-Man Blue, Hulk Gray, which Hulk Gray is another one that honestly very well could have made this list. Uh, Again, Long Halloween, Dark Victory, that stuff, Catwoman Win in Rome, like that Batman omnibus behind me there, all that stuff. But I wouldn't have read all that stuff had I not read this. And just to give you guys some context about what this book is essentially, spoiler alert, I mean, this is one of the most famous like deaths in comics just in general, but Karen Page gets killed, I believe, by Bullseye in the Kevin Smith run of Daredevil. And that's like the love of Matt Murdock's life. Well, was, he's got, weird stuff going on with Elektra, on and off kind of deal. But Karen Page is somebody who meant a lot to him at the very least, and he's just kind of reminiscing about like the first time they met and like multiple points throughout his career as Daredevil and like important moments that they shared together. So essentially, uh, Matt Murdock is going back and writing a letter to Karen, even though she's dead, and just sort of reminiscing about the times they shared. Um, and just Matt, I mean, just the storytelling is very bittersweet. It's a very sweet story, but knowing that she's dead and like the context around it and um, everything like that, it's there's just this very sad undertone to it, but at the same time, it's a celebration of Karen Page's life as well. Um, it's just a really beautiful story and how Jeff Loeb tells it, but matched with Tim Sale's art. I mean, you get the nice, just the beautiful watercolors, um, but it's almost got this like early Disney cartoon, just very retro looking style, but it's also like more modernized in this at the same time. I just absolutely adore Tim Sale's style. He was, gone too soon, man. Um, but yeah, no, everything about this book it's probably the best Daredevil book that I've read to date, which granted isn't a whole ton, but yeah, no, this was an amazing introduction to Daredevil, and I highly recommend it to anybody who wants to get into Daredevil or even just get into Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale's work. Next up, I'm going to be talking about Something is Killing the Children. This is out of Boom Studios, written by James Tynion IV, with art by Werther Dell'Edera. Yeah, what to say about this, right? I originally bought this first volume for Kayla. It was supposed to be a way to get her into comics because I thought it might be something she was interested in. But then it ended up not really working for her. It's whatever. But I was like, well, fuck it. I'm going to read it. So I read the first volume for myself. And let me tell you, man.
Let me tell you something.
Hell with this, Shane. I don't have that. Stop. Let me tell you something else, man. Hey, Herschel, man, let me ask you something.
I read this first volume and loved it so much that I was like, okay. Like, it's so addictive that I went to Amazon and added the entire fucking series to my cart and purchased it. And the day it came in, I tell you what, I read like 6 volumes in one sitting. Like, it's so addictive. Like, I read them, next volume, just flew through the series. It's, how many volumes is it total? I mean, it's 8 volumes total right now, and that means it's like 40 issues worth of content that's collected. But yeah, it is an awesome story. There's some stuff that in it that I don't care about so much, but at the same time, I mean, how do I explain? It's what I always tell people is, to me it feels like a mixture of Stranger Things and The Witcher. You've got these small towns across America where weird shit starts to happen. Kids are going missing. There's bodies that are turning up that are like torn to shreds, and people are getting freaked out. They don't know what's going on. They think there's like a serial killer loose. And then all of a sudden you get this strange girl that shows up with very distinct eyes and very like almost silver hair. She's blonde, but it's like a very ashy blonde, and she starts asking these questions and investigating, and what you come to find out is that this character, she's Erica Slaughter. She's the what do they call it? It's been a while since I read it, but she's a part of the Order of St. George. They're monster hunters, and they're essentially like witchers that are sent to like these small towns across America to hunt monsters. And there's these different monsters that feed off of fear, and the more people they kill and the more fear that they absorb, they become bigger and stronger and more deadlier. and then they make nests and like have babies, and there's a bunch of smaller like fear demons running around. And so Erica Slaughter has to go to these small towns and, investigate where, the killings and all that, and like kill these monsters. And yeah, it's awesome, and that's why it reminds me of Stranger Things in the way that it's like a small town in the middle of nowhere, where just like, quiet, sleepy town where shit starts happening. But at the same time, it's like The Witcher, because she's going to these different towns and doing this investigation. She's very much like a Geralt kind of character. And then when you learn the backstory and the lore, but behind the Order of Saint George, it's very much like The Witcher. Like there's different schools and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, man, I absolutely love this. It's probably the most addictive read that I've ever read. Um, it's absolutely amazing. And come like the end of volume 7, I want to say, man, the twists and turns and character deaths and like everything about the series was just amazing. One thing I will say is I don't care for volume 8 too much. Like, it was still alright, but it was my least favorite volume because it's a lot of like, I don't know, like short story type stuff. I'm not a short story kind of guy, never have been. I like long form kind of stories. I'm not a one shot kind of guy. Um, but my favorite volume in the series is probably volume 4, which, if I remember correctly, it goes back to when Erica Slaughter was a kid and joining the Order, and that's where you get a lot of lore about the world building and everything. Suddenly, the world of something is killing the children just expands like crazy, and it's one of the coolest issues or volumes that I've read just ever. But yeah, if you want something that's equal part action, equal part horror, I highly recommend Something is Killing the Children. It's fucking awesome. And if I remember correctly, they are doing like a TV adaptation of this, whether I can't remember if it's live action or if they're doing a cartoon or both or something. But if you want to hop on this before that happens, highly recommend it. These trades are also super cheap on Amazon. I'm sure you can find them other places too, but I think I got this first book for like $8. So yeah, easy to get into. Next up, I'm going to be talking about some mutants. I've got Astonishing X-Men. Now, let me give you guys some context. At the very beginning of 2025, like in January, I started my X-Men reading journey. I guess not really. I had started it prior, trying to read the Claremont stuff, and just didn't vibe with it at all. Reading like the second Genesis stuff. Um, yeah, it wasn't a big, I'm not a big Silver Age guy, or at least I wasn't back then. So I dropped it, and I was like, you know what, I need a good place to start that's modern X-Men. So for Christmas that year, Christmas of 2024, my mom had got me the new X-Men omnibus, which you can see behind me up above that yellow guy, which is written by Grant Morrison with some art by Frank Quitely and a bunch of other creators. And while I did think that was a step up from the stuff that I did read before, it was just a modern, fresh take that was a lot easier to read, it was still not exactly what I was looking for from X-Men. Um, you know, Grant Morrison has a way of like writing stuff and making it just, in my opinion, needlessly confusing where it doesn't need to be. And X-Men has a lot of that where it makes you do a double take and you have to reread pages because you're like, wait, what the fuck is going on? That kind of stuff, which I wasn't the biggest fan of, and by the end of the story, it does some weird shit at the end. Wasn't the biggest fan of it, but my point is that it was a step up. But then the next step for reading X-Men after New X-Men is to get into Astonishing X-Men, which is written by Joss Whedon with art by, was it John Cassidy? I think it's John Cassidy. Let me make sure I'm getting that right. Yes, John Cassaday. Um, Now, this right here is what I'm looking for with X-Men. It takes a lot of what I liked about new X-Men, but leaves all of the shit that I didn't like at the door and gives you a super engaging, fresh X-Men book that's literally just everything I wanted. This is easily the best X-Men book that I've read. You've got, Wolverine being Wolverine. You got Cyclops, probably the coolest Cyclops has ever been, at least in my opinion. Uh, in this book, you got Beast, Kitty Pryde, you got Emma Frost, um, and a lot of this stuff directly builds on what we've read in New X Men. There's a lot of callbacks to the events of that book with certain characters, and it calls back to it several times. So me reading that, I think, was necessary. Like, I suppose technically you could start with Astonishing X-Men, although you might be confused sometimes. Just like, I don't know, just watch a video, I guess, of New X-Men, and then read Astonishing X-Men if you don't want to read it. Um, but I think having read Grant Morrison's stuff, I did have like a different sort of appreciation for this since it called back to it multiple times throughout. But halfway through the run of Astonishing X-Men, we also have House of M, which was such an awesome event. I guess again I can kind of say it's Astonishing X-Men slash House of M, which was largely like a Wolverine story where, I mean, that's the famous story where Scarlet Witch is going insane and she like warps reality into making it to where mutants reign supreme and like humans are like a minority. And then Wolverine wakes up and he remembers all of the stuff. He knows the shit's not right, and so he kind of goes rogue and like it's almost like a Days of Future Past esque kind of story. He builds like a resistance around him, which does play a little bit of a part in the second half of Astonishing X-Men, but as far as I'm aware, they kind of ignored the events largely. Like, you don't have to read like House of M, even though canonically it takes place between. Like, they briefly mention it, and then they're like, okay, now let's get back to the story, kind of deal. But everything in that era was just fucking fantastic. I really enjoyed it. The ending was cool. I really liked the spotlight that they gave Kitty Pryde. They definitely made her a cooler character than, I think that's probably the coolest that Kitty or Catherine has ever been. You've got John Cassaday's art, which is just immaculate. Another one gone too soon, man. But yeah, no, the art's fantastic. The story's cool as shit. It's just super fresh X-Men. Next up, I have the book that largely inspired me to even make this video in the first place, because I was talking about it with my boy Cameron today on our podcast. We Got Issues. Quick plug, check it out. Link in the description. But we spent today's episode, as we were recording, we spent like 40 minutes talking about this book, because when I first read it, I absolutely loved it. And then I put Cameron on, and he finally read all of it, and we were just talking about the series as a whole, theory crafting, talking about what, like what we would love to see from it from the future. And it just talking about it with him reminded me how much I love it. And I guess I'll go ahead and say it. That's Geiger. Geiger by Jeff Johns and Gary Frank, with colors by Brad Anderson. Yeah, man, what to say? This is very much like Fallout meets Berserk in a lot of ways, but not as like raunchy as Berserk, I would say. Not like weird sexual stuff that Berserk has. It's more just like some of the motifs and like undertones. You got this like wandering badass through a wasteland kind of character who starts to build this like found family around him, and his solemn facade starts to crack, and you see humanity it's like Berserk in that way, where I can draw parallels. But anyway, yeah, no, Geiger is awesome. It's one of, if not the best indie series I've ever read. I mean, I've read Invincible. I love Invincible, but Geiger is up there, man. It's gotta be top three, personally. Yeah, no, it's super cool. You got this original 6-issue miniseries, which is great in its own right. But then, I mean, check this out here. I'll quickly show this art. Look at that, man. How badass is that? You follow this character, Tarek Geiger, as he wanders this barren wasteland after like a nuclear apocalypse. He's the radioactive man. He absorbed a bunch of radiation. Think like Dr. Phosphorus, from Creature Commandos. He's basically like he has that almost that exact same power set. Um, yeah, no. Tarek Geiger goes on an adventure. He finds these kids. He has to protect them. That's all in this miniseries, but the miniseries did so well, and there was a story that the creators still wanted to tell, that they extended it to an ongoing, and then you get Geiger Volume 2, which is the start of like a more sprawling story. Like it's like they really took that idea and then we're kicking it into gear. Um, it is awesome, and it ties in with Junkyard Joe as well. There's a bunch of stuff in this unnamed universe. You got Redcoat, which I haven't read yet, but Junkyard Joe is another one that's wonderful, and that starts to heavily tie in towards the end. I won't give too much away, because I definitely want you guys to go check it out. But just know that I loved it so much that I sold my trades, and I picked up the deluxe editions instead, um, because I needed this art oversized. I needed my favorite, or one of my favorite series ever, just in this oversized format. Hardcover, had to do it to them because it is wonderful. All right, guys, we got 3 books left. This is number 3 here. This isn't necessarily a top 3. They're just like I said, the 3 that we have left. This is Ultimate Spider-Man by Brian Michael Bendis, with art by Mark Bagley. Yeah, this is the original Ultimate Spider-Man from the year 2000. I've wanted to read Spider-Man stuff, but I feel like Spider-Man is one of those characters who's in a really weird spot, because for as popular of a character as he is, being one of the probably top 5 most popular superheroes of all time in the entire world. Like, he's huge in Japan, I know that, but just like all over the world, right? Up there with Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. He's like on the Mount Rushmore of superheroes. He's the most popular, most famous Marvel superhero by far. Um, but with all that being said, I just from my experience and just from what I understand, there are few Spider-Man runs that are really good, like really great. Of course, you've got Craven's Last Hunt, which you could read. The original '60s stuff, which I heard wasn't bad, like the Steve Ditko stuff. There are some stuff here and there, but like Spider-Man hasn't been good in probably all of the 2000s, at least from what I understand. Of course, famously, like the Zeb Wells stuff being atrocious, and like what is it called? The one where like he resets everything and like sells his marriage to the devil or whatever, like that. Like all of that shit. You know, it's really hard, I feel like, to find a Spider-Man run that's really worth reading. But Ultimate Spider-Man is just such a fresh take. Like, it's literally, we hit the reset button. It's an alternate universe. You don't need to know anything. And it takes you back to Peter Parker getting bit by the spider, everything, right? It's, and from what I understand, It's largely what the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies were based on in the early 2000s, because you have that stuff where like he becomes like a wrestler or whatever, when he starts to test out his powers and all that. And then later on in the run, Tobey Maguire makes an appearance like as like a cameo, like a little bit of a meta joke kind of thing that they do. But yeah, no, it's just a great modern place to start with Spider-Man, because of course the Spider-Man origin stuff is all from the 60s, and if you don't want to go back that far, like read that kind of dialogue and wording and stuff, you just want something modern, you can definitely start here. um it's got a ton of action. I love Bendis's voice for Spider-Man and Peter Parker as a character, just being quippy and like sarcastic as always. um you know the art's amazing. You've got a ton of action and mystery, but there's also like that teen angst and teen romance, high school aspect of it that always intrigues me about Spider-Man. I've only read this first omnibus's worth because you guys know, if you've been around for a while, I'm largely a physical only reader, and volume two of the omnibus is severely out of print. And from what I understand, Marvel isn't doing very many reprints this year, so hopefully they reprint volume two here in 2027. Uh, but I might have to read the contents of volume two digitally because I have the other omnis, and I really want to continue this because I mean it's one of my favorite books I've read this year. Um, but yeah, no, if you're looking to start Spider-Man, I mean it's kind of sad, but like one of the best places to start with Spider-Man isn't even in main continuity. Um, yeah, this is where I would point any modern reader to start reading Spider-Man. Yeah, no, this is fucking awesome. Moving on, this is our second to last book we're going to be talking about today. That is Transformers by Daniel Warren Johnson, and Mike Spicer, and later Jorge Corona. What to say about this, man? I mean, the Energon universe has been super dope, and this, from what I remember correctly, is what started it all. I think Void Rivals came a little bit later, and then G.I. Joe. But again, you guys know I love Daniel Warren Johnson, and this was one of the first Daniel Warren Johnson books that I ever read. Being familiar, with Transformers, I had an understanding of what I was getting into, but at the same time, like I didn't really care a whole ton about Transformers. Like I grew up with the Michael Bay movies with Shia LaBeouf and Megan Fox and all that. I grew up with those. I was a fan of those, but I was never like a Transformers kid. Like I had some Transformers action figures. I know Optimus, I know Bumblebee, Megatron, sure, but I wouldn't consider myself a Transformers fan. I just never was. But reading this and just like with that, you know, Daniel Warren Johnson's style, that flair of his art just being, violent, but like, I mean, you're dealing with robots, so it's like it's violent, but it's not. It's just ton of action. He has a very unique art style. His storytelling too is like full of heart. It's emotional. Uh, yeah, it's equal parts badass and emotional. There's just some awesome moments. I just flipped to it here. I have this deluxe edition, but this is one of my favorite scenes in the entire series, the entire run, with RC on the side of the dam, catching the girl. Yeah, no. But my point is, though, talking about my history with Transformers, is that this book made me a Transformers fan. Like, as you can see on my desk, I've got Optimus and little Bumblebee and Optimus and Megatron right here. I wouldn't have had those figures on my desk had I not read this. This is what made me a Transformers fan. Yeah, so I only have this first deluxe edition. I've read through the first 3 or 4 volumes. I sold those off to get the deluxe editions, but I'm very excited for deluxe edition 2 to come out in May. Um, but yeah, no, I'm very excited to continue. I haven't read any of the Kirkman stuff yet, but I will definitely get to that eventually. But yeah, man, Transformers is just wonderful. I think this is a great place to start for people wanting to get into Daniel Warren Johnson, just because Transformers is a franchise that's so well known, and there's like this level of recognizability to it that, I mean, anybody can get into it, and it's a decently long run. His run is 24 issues, so there's plenty of content to sink your teeth in and really get a feel for Daniel Warren Johnson's writing. Although he does get off the main art at some point, kind of early on in the series. I think after issue 12 or so, and then Jorge Corona takes over the main art, even though Daniel Warren Johnson continues to do like the covers and stuff. But Jorge also has a very similar art style to Daniel Warren Johnson, and if I didn't know any better, I would say that D-Dubs illustrated the whole book. So yeah, it's almost like a seamless transition. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that it's a great place for people to start with D-Dubs who aren't so sure about getting into his like creator-owned stuff. Yeah, it's an amazing place to start. However, talking about Daniel Warren Johnson and his creator-owned stuff, my last book that I am going to be talking about today is Murder Falcon. This book took me by surprise, as did a lot of these books here that I talked about today. You take a look at this and it seems kind of unassuming, right? You've got this dude playing guitar, and then you see this big bird dude with like a robot arm. You can tell that this series, I mean, they're rockers, right? It's gonna be fucking metal. You're like, who's this guy? This like Street Fighter looking motherfucker, you know what I mean? And then you look at the back, they're in this van. It's very much, if you're a fan of like Scott Pilgrim or like Wayne's World, like any kind of like music centric movie or series or whatever. What's another one? Not Wayne's World, but fuck, what movie am I? Yeah, Bill and Ted. Yeah. If you're like a fan of like any kind of music, rock and roll, metal, like centric, Tenacious D, even, um, this is the perfect book. But like it takes music and stuff, but then takes it up to the next level because they use the power of music to fight like demons and shit. Like it's super metal, and there's a ton of references to rock and roll and metal throughout the story as well. I mean, like they go into record stores and you can look in the background and see like Led Zeppelin posters and like different album arts and stuff like that, which is perfect for me because that like, I mean, that's my kind of music. So it's a ton of fun. There's a bunch of cool variants for the single issues as well. It also has like almost like a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure kind of element too, because you've got these characters like Murder Falcon right here that remind me a lot of JoJo stands. Like it's what happens when these characters play their like instruments, but they're like special ancient power instruments, and then their own like style and soul combined with the instruments to project like this spiritual, I don't know, embodiment of themselves and their like musical ability, I guess, and it like turns into this character that like fights demons. Like they're fighting demons by projecting their spirit as like this character. Anyway, it's really fucking cool. Ton of like metal, rock and roll references. They're fighting demons. There's a ton of action. There's a ton of heart. You've got this really sad story underneath it all. And it's like a getting the band back together story, but by the end, you realize why they broke up in the first place, and it's kind of a tragic story as well. But yeah, no, the art. I mean, to die for. The story's awesome. It just has a bunch of just really great moments. And there's also like a bunch of like, I don't know, it reminds me of like a fighting game in a lot of ways too. Like I said, like Street Fighter. Um, yeah, there's just so many cool elements, and this is by far, I would say, my favorite Daniel Warren Johnson book that I've read. Um, it's only 8 issues, and it just manages to pack such a punch, and it feels like this book was like written for me. And I got my buddy Cameron to read it as well, and him being a lot like me felt much the same. Um, yeah, no, this is one of the best comics I've ever read. Uh, yeah, and it's easily my favorite Daniel Warren Johnson book. But anyways, guys, that is going to go ahead and do it. Wrap this video up. I hope you guys did enjoy, and if you did, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, definitely tell me what your guys' favorite reads of 2025 were in the comments below, or you can join the Discord as well, which will be in the description if you guys want to talk more in depth with me and the homies on the server. If you want to hear more about my thoughts on certain books, more in depth with my homie Cameron, check out our podcast. Again, links will be in the description. But with all that being said, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.